The River Tana, a big and long river, snakes through the heart of Kenya, being both a blessing and a curse for the communities that live along its banks. Its waters provide life, sustaining the crops and animals that local villages depend on. On top of that, the people also get food from its waters, as the river harbors various fish species. But the river also harbors danger, and on September 13th, 2024, the ancient predators that lurk beneath its surface reminded everyone of their deadly power. It was a scorching afternoon, the kind of heat that forces the earth to bake and crack under the weight of the sun. The fishing village of Kipini, nestled on the southern end of the Tana River, had long endured such relentless heat, and its people had learned to live with it. For three fishermen, Juma, Omari, and Kito, the day began as any other. The river was their livelihood, and they depended on it for food and income. With the drought season stretching on, the fish had become scarce, forcing them to venture deeper into the river's treacherous waters. The locals were already used to the changes in season throughout the year and had learned to adapt accordingly in order to survive. The dry season meant fewer fish in the shallow waters, while during the wet seasons, it was common for them to find fish even in the smallest water channels in case River Tana overflowed and its waters joined with these channels. By noon, Juma, Omari, and Kito had loaded their small wooden canoe with fishing nets and spears and began their journey down the river, hoping for a big catch. While the nets were for the fish, the spears were weapons to protect themselves from any unexpected danger they might face. They hoped they would not need them, but better safe than sorry. As they paddled, the sound of the oars cutting through the water was a familiar, almost soothing rhythm. This is because, since childhood, they had fished these waters and had learned how to navigate the river's twists and turns with skill and confidence. While the danger of being attacked by crocodiles was always present in their minds, over the years, they had learned how to avoid them by staying away from known breeding grounds and the murky still waters where these creatures like to lie in wait, disguising themselves as floating sediments. But this was no ordinary day. The drought had altered the river's ecosystem, forcing both humans and predators into closer proximity. Fish were scarce, and the crocodiles, too, were hungry. As the day went by, none of the men could have predicted how quickly their fortunes would turn from a simple day of fishing to a fight for their very lives. As they paddled toward a quieter section of the river where they suspected that fish would be due to the depth, a cool breeze swept across the water, momentarily relieving them from the oppressive heat of the midday sun. Juma, the eldest of the group and considered the leader, anchored the canoe near a deep pool where the fish were known to gather. Omari and Kito began preparing the nets while Juma cast his first line, the silence only broken by the occasional splash of water. For almost an hour, the men worked in peace and quiet. The sun bore down on them and sweat trickled down their faces, but they paid it no mind since they were already used to the grind. They were only focused on hauling in a good catch to bring home. But just as they were beginning to relax, something unexpected happened. The water near the canoe rippled faintly at first, then all of a sudden, it became more violent. "Did you see that?" Omari, who was closest to the edge of the boat, peered over the side and asked, his voice tinged with curiosity, but not yet fear. "Maybe it's just a big fish." Juma, standing at the stern, said, if Juma was right and this was a big fish, then they would be saved from the scorching sun early. But before anyone could react, the canoe rocked violently, nearly tipping over and throwing them overboard. The water around them began to churn, as if something massive was moving beneath the surface. Seeing this, Kito grabbed the sides of the boat, his knuckles white with tension. "What the hell is that?" he whispered, fear creeping into his voice. Before Juma or Omari could respond to the question, without warning, it happened. A huge scaled body burst from the water, its jaws wide open, snapping at Omari's arm. The force of the attack threw him backward, knocking him into the river. His scream echoed across the riverbanks as the crocodile dragged him under, the water around them turning a murky red. Despite being experienced fishermen, Juma and Kito froze at first. They were paralyzed by the horror revealing itself in front of their eyes. Omari's thrashing limbs disappeared beneath the water, the crocodile's immense power pulling him down with ease. For a few seconds, the river went still as if nothing had happened at all. But both men knew better. They had seen crocodile attacks before, though never up close, and they knew what would come next. They both panicked. Kito went to the other side of the canoe, his hands shaking as he grabbed a paddle. "We have to go, now," he shouted, his voice cracking with fear. Being the leader of the three, Juma, still gripping his spear, glanced at the spot where Omari had vanished. His heart pounded in his chest, torn between the instinct to save his friend and the realization that there was nothing they could do to help Omari. This is because crocodiles attacked with ruthless efficiency, and Omari was already gone. Even so, Juma couldn't bring himself to abandon him. As they wondered what to do next, the water around the canoe erupted once more. Another crocodile, just as massive as the one that had got Omari, lunged from beneath the surface, its powerful tail propelling towards the canoe. This time, Kito was the target. In one horrifying moment, the crocodile latched onto Kito's leg. It sank its teeth deep into his flesh. He screamed in agony as he bled uncontrollably, and the beast began to drag him into the water and twist its body as if to snap his leg off his body. It was clear that the crocodile had decided that it must have a piece of him, if not the whole of him. Seeing this, Juma's survival instincts kicked in. He grabbed his spear and jabbed it into the crocodile's side. But the weapon was useless against the thick, honest armored hide of the predator. The crocodile, undeterred, yanked Kito into the water, pulling him under with terrifying speed. Juma was alone now. The canoe rocked violently on the surface, water splashing over the sides as the river churned because of the struggle going on beneath. Kito was surely giving the beast a hard time. If he were to go down, he would do it fighting rather than giving in and becoming easy food for the crocodile. Besides, he had already lost when it grabbed him and threw him overboard without any weapon to fight it off. On top of that, there is no telling how many crocodiles were in the water. Perhaps there were baby crocodiles waiting for an afternoon meal. Desperation and terror clouded Juma's mind, and the harsh reality of the matter hit him hard. His spear was useless against these hungry monsters, and if he didn't get to shore soon, he would be next. With shaking hands, Juma grabbed the paddle and began rowing as fast as he could. The canoe cut through the water, but he could feel the crocodiles beneath him circling like sharks taunting prey. At this moment, every second felt like an eternity as Juma paddled toward the nearest bank. With all the adrenaline rushing through his body as he was in flight mode, his muscles burned with exhaustion. He could hear the sounds of splashing water that was behind him, but he didn't dare look back since he was focused on saving his dear life. Just as he thought he might make it, the canoe was attacked again. The back of the boat dipped as one of the crocodiles slammed into it from below. Juma barely managed to stay upright. His grip tightened on the paddle. He was close now, so close he could see the muddy shore just ahead. With the final ounce of energy he had, Juma paddled hard, with his arms straining against the weight of the water. The canoe scraped against the bank, and Juma leaped from the boat, scrambling onto land. His heart raced, his entire body trembling with fear and exhaustion. But he was alive, and that's what mattered. He then turned back toward the river, as if to check if he was still being followed. The water was calm once more. The only evidence of the carnage was a few ripples on the surface and the floating remains of the nets. Juma's friends were gone, dragged to their deaths by the merciless predators of the Tana River. If he had listened to Kito the first time, maybe the two of them would have made it. But this was no time to sit there and regret. Juma was grateful to be alive. Following the merciless carnage, the news spread quickly through the village. The elders, hardened by years of living in the shadow of the river, knew all too well the dangers that came with fishing its waters. But this attack was unlike anything they had seen before. The drought had driven the crocodiles into a feeding frenzy, and the once reliable river had become a death trap for anyone with the guts to fish in it. In the days that followed, authorities from the Kenya Wildlife Service arrived to assess the situation. But what could they really do rather than spread awareness of the killer crocodiles? Signs were posted along the riverbanks, warning villagers of the heightened danger. But for Juma, the damage was already done. The river that had once been his source of life was now a place of unspeakable horror and PTSD, forever engraved in his mind. As sad as that was, it was not the only crocodile attack on fishermen that was reported from the communities living along the banks of the River Tana. In Tana River County, Muhammad, a fisherman, encountered a similar dark fate of carnage from a large, hungry crocodile. This time, it was not during the drought season, rather, the rainy season when the river floods. Being the longest river in Kenya, whenever it floods, the people in Tana River County are trapped and cannot maneuver freely due to dangerous creatures lurking in the waters, waiting for someone to devour. Muhammad, an experienced fisherman, had been fishing these waters all his life. He knew the risk of fishing during the flood seasons, but his family needed food. So, one early morning, he set out with his fishing gear, determined to catch something before the day's end. The air was thick with humidity, and the sky above was heavy with gray clouds. Muhammad found a spot he had fished many times before, and had a good catch near a bend in the river. He cast his line, sitting quietly, listening to the rush of the water. There was something calming about the river, even in its wildest state. As he waited for a bite, he didn't notice the dark shadow lurking just below the surface of the water. The river had a way of hiding things, and today it hid something deadly, something so dangerous that if Muhammad knew he was being watched by the creature, he would not dare fish on that spot. Without warning, the water erupted in a violent splash. Before Muhammad could react, a massive crocodile bit onto his leg with terrifying force, sinking its sharp teeth into his flesh. The pain of the bite was instant and intense. He let out a scream, but the roar of the river swallowed most of the sound as the crocodile dragged him into the water, spinning violently in an effort to rip his leg off from his body. Muhammad thrashed wildly, trying to free himself, but the beast was too strong. The water was deep, cold, and fast, pulling him under again and again. His lungs burned as he struggled to stay above the surface. His leg torn by the crocodile's powerful jaws, blood mixed with the muddy water, and for a moment, Muhammad thought that it was time for him to meet his maker under the sharp jaws of the hungry predator. But his scream had carried just far enough. Nearby, a group of fishermen had been casting their nets. They heard the faint cry and saw the commotion in the water. Realizing what was happening, they grabbed their spears and rushed to the riverbank. The crocodile was relentless, dragging Muhammad deeper into the river, but the fishermen didn't hesitate. With a loud cry, they hurled their spears at the enormous reptile. The first spear missed, splashing into the water, but the second struck its target. The crocodile let out a fierce growl, loosening its grip on Muhammad's leg for just a moment. Seeing this, the fishermen waded into the water, spears in hand. They circled the crocodile, stabbing at it until it finally let go completely. With one final thrash of its tail, the beast retreated back into the murky depths. The men pulled Muhammad from the river, his leg badly injured, blood soaking the ground beneath him. He was weak, trembling, and barely conscious, but alive. They worked quickly to stop the bleeding, tearing their shirts to bandage his leg. The news reached his family, who accompanied him to the local doctor, who treated his wounds. He had slipped from the jaws of death, living to tell the tale. With all its beauty and bounty, the Tana River was a reminder of nature's indifference to human life. And on those fateful days, its ancient predators reminded the village of Kipini and residents of Tana River County that no matter how long they had lived beside the river, they were never truly safe from what lay beneath its waters. What a brutal reality check.